I've always thought the Halo series is at its very best when you're given the opportunity to take full advantage of its incredible sandbox in huge open environments, which give you a plethora of options for how to approach any given situation. And Delta Halo in Halo 2 is one of the quintessential examples of how amazing that combination can be. Its excellent opening cinematic sets the tone, and it never lets up from that point onwards as you battle your way across the ring world while on the hunt for the Prophet of Regret. Before we take a look at the mission itself, let's first quickly remind ourselves of Halo 2's story leading into Delta Halo. After failing to prevent the destruction of Installation 04 during the events of Halo Combat Evolved, the elite known as Thelvadam is branded with the mark of shame by the Covenant's leaders, the Prophets, for his failures. Meanwhile, on Cairo Station, Master Chief collects his new armour and attends an award ceremony for his heroism, which is cut short by the Covenant's arrival, marking the beginning of their assault on planet Earth. After using one of their own bombs to destroy several enemy ships, Chief, joined by Cortana, heads to New Mombasa to take the fight to the enemy, and it doesn't take too long before the Prophet of Regret is left with no choice but to flee, with Master Chief, Miranda Keyes and Johnson in hot pursuit aboard the ship in amber clad. Back on High Charity, Thelvadam is given a shot at redemption by becoming the Arbiter, the highest possible honour that could be bestowed upon an elite, awarded only during times of great need. He then takes on his first mission under his new title, to eliminate a Covenant splinter faction made up of so-called heretics, which he completes successfully, with Brute leader Tartarus also capturing 343 Guilty Spark in the process. And that's where events once again transition back to Master Chief and company, and Delta Halo begins. It probably won't come as too much of a surprise to learn that Delta Halo takes place on another of the Forerunner's mysterious ring worlds.
Cortana, what exactly am I looking at?
That is another Halo.
Say what?
So this is what my father found. I thought Halo was some sort of super weapon.
It is. If activated, this ring will cause destruction on a galactic scale.
Which I was very happy about back in 2004, as by this point in my first playthrough of Halo 2, I was starting to get a little worried that the game wouldn't actually feature one. The latter half of the cutscene is also fantastic, as the Covenant are caught somewhat unaware by Master Chief and the group of ODSTs hurtling towards them.
Possibly make any more noise? I guess so.
And there's also a fun little Easter egg here that it's very easy to miss. Now, I'm using the anniversary cutscenes for this video as I adore them, but it's one that was first included in the original version of the game, so we'll start looking at it there. If you pay attention to the grunt featured in this scene, he'll actually have a different toy in his hands depending on the difficulty level chosen. On easy, he's playing with a stick and the dirt. On normal, he has plasma grenades. On heroic, it's fire. And finally, on legendary, he has Master Chief and grunt dolls. This also carries over to the anniversary edition, where the Jackal taunts the grunt with a number of different dolls. On easy, he's holding the Didact. On normal, it's the Librarian. On heroic, it's Master Chief. And last but not least, on legendary, it's Rampant Cortana. It's an inclusion of little consequence, but nevertheless, I rather enjoy it. Moving away from toys and onto the action at hand, one of the things I find most striking about this mission is how different an introduction it is to a Halo compared to that found in Combat Evolved. Your first visit to Installation 04 in that game was a much more measured affair. You spent your first few minutes on the ring fighting only handfuls of Covenant while exploring enormous areas, whereas the beginning of your time on Installation 05 is a pulse-pounding affair. You fight your way up to a stone structure at the top of the area, a clear visual indicator of where you're meant to head next in a fairly congested area before more Covenant are ferried in for you to fend off. I really like it. The temptation for Bungie, I'd guess, would have been to attempt to emulate the opening of Halo and again instill a sense of wonder in you, but because this mission takes place quite a way into Halo 2's campaign, I don't think that would have been the correct approach. You're familiar with what the installations look like, and you've already spent an entire game exploring one previously, and so a much faster paced start I think helps differentiate Delta Halo from its predecessor predecessor and fits well within the context of the campaign as a whole. After clearing out the area alongside your ODST buddies, a Warthog is dropped in and you continue to traverse the ring. I do find the inclusion of the Warthog here to be a rather strange decision given the makeup of the next area. You're tasked with clearing out a fairly large group of Covenant from a nearby structure so that you can activate a bridge and cross a gorge, on the other side of which are 2 wraiths. The gameplay included here isn't the issue in and of itself. Clearing out the building and destroying a number of vehicles is a lot of fun, but to me, I can't help but feel like there could have been 1 or 2 more short areas to drive across in the Warthog before reaching the area housing the bridge. For one thing, it would have helped further drive home the scale of the ring for those who may have forgotten just how gargantuan they are, and it also would have made the Warthog itself a more useful addition, although to be fair, you can use it in the next area even if it's not particularly encouraged, and Cortana will make a comment if you choose to use it or anything other than the tank.
You don't want the tank. Okay, I guess we'll leave it for the others.
In the level's current guise, you only use the Warthog for a minute or 2 before the Scorpion is dropped off, and let's be honest, who's going to continue to use the Warthog when we all know that tank beats everything? The section in the Scorpion which follows is excellent, and it rights a lot of the wrongs I believe were present in Assault on the Control Room's own rendition in Combat Evolved. I recently covered that mission in detail, which you can watch by clicking the card on screen now, and one of the claims I made was that its own similar sequence went on quite a bit longer than it should have. Indeed, there's a reason why the next mission in the series I've chosen to talk about is Delta Halo, because I see a lot of parallels between the two. They both begin with the Covenant being surprised by Master Chief's entrance. You've seen the scene at the beginning of Delta Halo already, but here's Assault on the Control Rooms as a reminder. They both also feature extended sections during which you take control of a Scorpion, and continually introduce new allies for you to fight alongside, giving them both a more epic feel. But where Assault on the Control Room I think did a fairly lackluster job in terms of pacing, with the level often featuring long stretches of doing the same things over and over again, Delta Halo gets it just right. It opens with a couple of areas focused more on traditional gunplay, with a little vehicular combat mixed in, before you find yourself in the tank. The next few areas are then very well designed in that their layouts vary in size but remain somewhat narrow, and they introduce most of the enemies you'll encounter directly ahead of you at fairly close range, which means you never end up sitting in the middle of a huge open area blasting things from a distance until your path is clear and you're safe to move forward. You engage in much tighter skirmishes than those which were often found in Assault on the Control Room, and you're constantly encouraged to keep moving forwards by the level design, and that means that by the end of this part of Delta Halo, you're left wanting more rather than feeling fatigued. It's a good thing that's the case too, as there's still some ways to go before you reach your destination. More allies are introduced, on this occasion showing off their frankly incredible human pyramid skills, and you're able to cater your loadout to pretty much whatever you'd like thanks to the weapons which are dropped in at the same time. Another on-foot section follows. It begins with 1 or 2 fairly standard encounters, and I want to use these moments to mention again how well Delta Halo is paced. When you look at the mission as a whole, it doesn't seem like an overly long or complex one, but that really works in its favour. There's no fat here, no unnecessary fluff traversing huge areas which slows proceedings down too much. Halo games do 100% need to include a few parts like that. Sometimes those larger open sections can be the best of the bunch and do a great job building atmosphere, but this mission's focus errs more towards the action side of things, and Bungie executes on it perfectly. There are never more than a few seconds in between each new encounter, and every section is different from the last. Bungie transitions you swiftly from on-foot combat to vehicles and back again, and it's an absolute joy to play. Up next, you'll come face to face or face to back with a lone jackal.
You always bring me to such nice places.
It might not seem like it, but his inclusion is Game Design 101. The area which follows is best tackled with a sniper rifle, and you may not have decided to pick one up earlier, and so this jackal essentially acts as a walking weapons upgrade, so that you're still equipped with a sniper rifle in an area which all but requires one. This next encounter is for my money the best in the entire mission. It features jackals sniping you from afar, drones in the skies above you, and plenty of Covenant at ground level, and it all takes place in an area which is perfectly designed around them. There are so many ways you can approach this area. You can hang back for as long as possible, sniping enemies from a distance. You can venture further in while keeping to higher ground to try and clear out the drones first, or you can head to the bottom of the area where you may end up having a much tougher time. There are also plenty of ways to move horizontally as well as vertically, which means you'll quickly find yourself picking up a nice rhythm as you move up, down and side to side around the area, combined with the rock stylings of In Amber Clad playing in the background, the song you can hear right now, and it's a really engrossing affair. On the topic of music, I also have to say that Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore did a superb job on this mission. Peril, which plays at its beginning, is an excellent piece, as is the mission's third track, Heretic Hero. I love Combat Evolved's soundtrack as there's something I adore about the relative simplicity of its tracks compared to some of the series' later entries, and those featured in Delta Halo feel like a real step up from that game without ever becoming too complex. As you draw closer to Regret's location, you take down a few final enemies, including several honor guards, before the level draws to a close. I can't, however, conclude this video without mentioning the Anniversary Edition's version of the mission, and in general, I like it a lot more than anything featured in Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary. There are some big issues here still, the intense bloom being the primary culprit, but at the same time, when that's not being used so excessively, the level as a whole really comes alive. That's especially true of the indoor section around Delta Halo's midpoint, which has a very monotonous aesthetic in the original version of the game. In the Anniversary Edition, it becomes a lot less of an issue due to the increased detail which has been added with great care compared to Combat Evolved Anniversary, and it genuinely feels like the ideal aesthetic for the area and a serious upgrade over the original. All in all, it's none too shabby. Delta Halo is Halo doing what Halo does best. It features plenty of variety in terms of enemies, areas, vehicles and weapons, but unlike similar missions in Halo Combat Evolved before it, it's also a much more tightly designed affair which has real pace to it. Unfortunately, Halo 2 in general does not for me feature enough levels like it, which I've always considered a bit of a shame considering just how good this one is, and I would have loved to have had more opportunities to experience Halo 2's upgraded sandbox in environments similar to that included in Delta Halo. However, putting my own personal foibles to one side, it cannot be denied that Delta Halo is a riveting experience from beginning to end, and one that I never fail to enjoy to the utmost, and in my view, that makes it the best mission that Halo 2 has to offer. Thanks for watching the video, boys, girls and Spartans. If you'd like to see more, do consider liking, subscribing and letting me know your thoughts, and fingers crossed, I'll catch you all again soon.